Welcome back to the channel, guys. You're about to watch hopefully not the worst video I've ever made. It was a successful install, but putting on the suspension was a lot harder than I thought. I dedicated 3 days. I thought I could probably get it done in one. The audio in this video cut out a bunch. Man, seized bolts, cutting. It was just a lot that I was not expecting. So you're going to see the edited down version that does not show all the struggles. It's already like a 25-30 minute video, and it would, gosh, it took me like 24 hours of working time on this truck to get it done. So I hope you find this beneficial. Please do not roast me in the comments. I completely understand how bad this install was and how long it took. It was successful though. We got through it. The Koni package is on the truck. It's aligned. It drives great. Could not recommend the package more from Alldogs Offroads and Z1. Please stay till the end to see how successful it was. Appreciate you sticking around. Let's get started. Big day. It's the day after Christmas. I'm in my father-in-law's shop. My house just has that gravel driveway and don't really have a safe place to do this big project, which is installing the Koni 82 lift kit from Alldogs Offroad, the upper control arms from Z1. That also includes the leaf springs with the Koni package. Lots to do. Hopefully this video will be beneficial to you. I'm going to be taking my time with this. I've got an alignment appointment in 3 days, so I've given myself a full 3 days to do this. I'm hoping it only takes me one. We'll see. But hopefully you'll stick around and see what we do. Let's get started. So here is the shocks, struts, and the leaf springs from Alldogs Offroad. And then here are the Z1 upper control arms. I've got a bunch of tools that I brought from my house just because I was unsure what my father-in-law had. But I'm hoping we have everything we need, including grease gun with some grease. This stuff is for the brakes and transmission fluid. I've got some jack stands and a jack, and then I'm also going to be borrowing my father-in-law's jack there. I think the more jacks and jack stands, the better. All right, before we get started, just measuring the height of the fender. I'm sitting right at about 34 inches. And now I've got the Falcon Wild Peaks on here, so the tires are a little bit bigger than stock, but from the middle of the wheel to the fender is about 19 and a half. So we'll see what this looks like after it's all installed. Okay, I've got the wheel off. Just to give me some room back here, especially for the upper control arm and the steering column shaft. I'm gonna just unscrew and pop out some of these tabs to remove the fender liner. So you've got screws down here for the flap. Remember there's a screw back here as well. Don't not unscrew that and rip off your flap. Screw here, another screw here where I'm hanging my light. Couple screws here, and then there's a push tab, one right here, and that indentation up there, and that indentation, and then one more right there. Again, that'll just give me some more room to work with. Before we keep going, I want to quickly show you the manual I'm using for this job. All the torque specs and step-by-step procedures you're seeing here are coming straight from this workshop manual. I'm running it full screen so you can clearly see how detailed it is. Everything from bolt sequences to exact torque values is laid out really clearly, which is huge when you're working on your own truck. This manual was provided by eManual Online. It's the same style of factory level information you'd expect from a dealership or professional shop. Let me give you a quick look at their website. Starting on the home page, you can search by make, model, and year, then go straight into specific manual for your vehicle. Once you're on the product page, you'll see exactly what's included before you buy. If you're working on your Frontier or really any vehicle, I highly recommend checking them out. I've got a link in the description along with a discount code that'll save you 22% site-wide. Use code OregonOverland22 at checkout. It's good through April 30th of 2026. I'll also pin the link and code in the comments so it's easy to find. All right, let's get back to the install. Okay, so I didn't mention before, we are on the driver's side. The passenger side is actually easier than this side. On this driver's side, I know we're not going to be able to remove one of these bolts easily from the upper control arm without disconnecting the steering wheel. So I'm just going to show you the driver's side. First, we're going to remove this cotter pin. You can see it's all pretty dusty and probably rusted in here. So I'm going to be using the breaker bar a lot. Once I get that cotter pin out, I'm going to use a 22 millimeter ratchet or breaker bar socket to undo that. And then before even doing all that, I'm just going to grab a small jack and put it up underneath this whole knuckle, just to not have this thing droop so far down and drop, because that could tear the brake line and the ABS line. So support this with a jack, cotter pin, 22 millimeter nut, and then we're going to bang this with a hammer or use a ball joint separator to disengage the upper control arm from this whole knuckle. Okay, we have the upper control arm separated. Now we have a 19 millimeter bolt and nut to take off. I'm going to loosen this up on both sides, and then I'm going to have to undo this from the steering wheel to make room for taking that bolt out. So to make this a little easier today, I have just unattached the sway bar. I've kept the link still bolted on, but just attach the sway bar from the link itself. Just makes it easier. Okay, so we removed these 3 bolts up here. Now we need to remove this 19 millimeter bolt at the lower shock point. And so I've got a breaker bar over here with 19 mil socket and a breaker bar over here. Okay, so here's the old Bilstein next to the new Koni shocks, just a little bit bigger on the Koni, and then I'm also going to be adding a 1/2-inch spacer plate just to level out the truck. And so the Koni already comes with 3 bolts for the top, so you don't need the old bolts that came off, but you will need the bolt from the bottom of the shock. We'll have to reuse this bolt, and so I'm probably going to clean this up just a little bit to keep it from looking like that here in the next couple of years. So we're looking at the top of the strut. There's this little tab up top. This one's marked with a purple paint, but this will be facing in towards the engine bay. And so you just want to make sure that that's sitting correctly, and that will make sure these 3 bolts are seated nicely and in the correct spring position. Okay, I've got the lower shock mount just lightly bolted on. I haven't torqued it down yet. I'll go over those torque specs in a second. Next, I had to get it bolted in, I could only start 2 of these. I had to lower this a lot for the shock to fit in. And so now I'm gonna have to raise this up a little bit more, but notice that the bolt is aligned in there. These 2 are already lightly bolted on, and so I'll have to raise it up a little bit to get this started. All right, so I've got these started. These need to be torqued down to 22 foot-pounds, and then this bottom bolt down here needs to be torqued to 98 foot-pounds. I've seen on the forums, maybe the older models, the older service manuals said to torque this down to 150. However, I just received a new service manual, and I'll put the product link down in the description, but the new service manual calls for 98 foot-pounds on this bottom shock. And if you go deeper into the Nissan forums, somebody's updated even that master list from the old Gen 2s to include this 98 foot-pound change. So 98 foot-pounds here, 22 up top. Okay, so this is the upper control arm from Z1. This is for the driver's side. As you can see on the back here, this is a DR for driver. It comes with a cotter pin, comes with this new bolt. You need to take this piece of plastic off. That's just to keep this from being damaged during travel. I'm going to keep these on for now so I don't lose them. And then we need to grease it. So we need a Allen key set to undo the top. Okay, now there's no signs to this part. What we want to do is just try to make this the same size. So I want these arms to be sticking out similar to the length of how long these are sticking out. The way I'm going to do this is just to basically line up the center of the old arm on this center ring here, and then just kind of eye it, just kind of be above here, and then just see how long these need to extend out. Honestly, they don't look like they need to be extended out very much. Maybe a few turns. To do that, you just need I think it's a 4mm socket to turn these. Before that, Z1 wants you to add some anti-seize to these arms. So they want you to unscrew these and then just add some anti-seize to these, just so that adjusting is better in the future. Okay, so there's two pieces to this. There's this silver bar that's sticking out here, and then it's also in here, and then there's a second bolt that's deeper in there that you can let out. I'm just going to keep that all the way in and let this be the main part that we align. I just don't want the alignment to be like, well, we need to bring in some of that space from the back to make it all work. I'm just going to keep it all inside and just use these extensions here to go in and out. Okay, after you get it set, you need to use another hex or Allen wrench. This is 5mm, and tighten down these two bolts on each side, and that just keeps this rod that we were just adjusting in place. And then they will undo this at the alignment shop when they need to fix all my mistakes. So I'm just going back and forth with this. The manual says to torque this down to 10 foot-pounds. Okay, and then I'm going to use a 30mm wrench to tighten these bolts here. You just don't want, you want to keep this parallel. Okay, so the arm comes with these 4 conical inserts, and they're supposed to be 2 tall and 2 small. But here I've got 3 small and 1 tall. The instructions call for the short conicals or short cones to be on the inside if you want maximum clearance, which is what I want. And then the taller ones on the outside, or towards the rear of the truck. But since I don't have all the parts, I'm just going to put 2 shorts on the inside and then 1 long and 1 short on the back side. Okay, we've got the upper control arm bolted in, and those are torqued down to 96 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to work on getting it attached to the top of the knuckle. Okay, I'm about to torque this down. I found that the easiest way to get the control arm in the knuckle was to lower this down a lot. Again, still being mindful of the ABS line and the brake line, but this needs to be torqued down to 58 foot-pounds. And then we'll put in the cotter pin and bend it around. Okay, there she is, all installed. I've got the fender liner back in, which sometimes seems to be the toughest part of this whole thing. This is pretty much done, except I am also going to be installing the eccentric lockout bolts from Z1 that go on the lower control arms. And the point of this is it will push out the lower control arms to help with alignment issues that we may have, because now this is setting up higher because of the lift. And so first I'm going to be breaking loose those nuts there. And so this is, on this side is a 22 mil bolt, and then over here is a 19 mil nut. Okay, these bolts have these plates that come with them that have the arrows pointing directions. And so you can see there, sorry for the shaky camera, this has a arrow pointing inward, and what that means is there's a lot more space over here, and that pushes the lower control arm out. When you get it from factory, there's just a single washer that I've thrown away somewhere, and it just keeps it center. This will push this lower control arm out. I'm gonna have it be pointing inwards on both the rear lower control arm and on the front. You can see the washer actually from the factory just keeps it dead center. I'm going to just have them both pointing inward, pushing the whole entire lower control arm out, and then that should give the technician with the alignment more play in the upper control arm area to get the right alignment. And then once they're both installed, you torque these down to 100 foot-pounds. Okay, got the eccentric bolts in, and the last step on this side is to tighten up the sway bar link, and that is torqued to 69 foot-pounds. All right, that's it. On the front driver, just need to put the tire on. Okay, we've moved on to the driver's side rear. Just for setting up, you'll need to get the tire off. I've also taken the spare tire down because the rear leaf spring bolt is gonna come into contact with that tire, and so it just makes it easier to get out. I've also placed a small jack underneath the pumpkin, the rear differential. The first thing we're gonna do is remove the shock, and so up here is a 17 millimeter bolt. There's only a nut back there. And then down here, I've got the Z1 shock covers, and so I need a 19 millimeter socket to get both ends off of that. I'm expecting to need a breaker bar because these should be set to about 150 foot-pounds, and so we'll get to work on that. I've also got this roller board here just to help me get underneath. Okay, the strut is off. Now I'm going to take the U-bolts off. But before that, I heard some noise outside, and we got some deer eating on the apple tree. So, kind of fun for what has been a long, eventful removal and replacement of this suspension system. So, U-bolts are coming off next. Okay, so now I'm going to be removing the leaf spring. You can keep the existing U-bolts. The Koni package I got came with new U-bolts, but wait till later in the video and I'll just show you the difference there, whether you want to keep them or not. But first I'm going to start on the rear. When you're detaching the rear, you've got two bolts here. So this is the stock OEM shackle back here. So you've got one bolt here and one bolt here. They're both 17 millimeter. And so those are the nuts. The bolt, see if I can get you some light. The bolt is actually just a flat bolt. Like there's nothing to grab onto. So this is all you're going to need to break free are these two bolts. Do both of them, then this will slide off, and then you can release the leaf spring. Don't just do one and try to get it down. You have to release both to detach that shackle back there. Okay, we have the shackle off, and you want to save all that for this Koni kit. So there's some bushings still in the frame, and we want to keep those there. We can take them out and grease them here in a little bit, but main thing is we want to keep all this hardware. All we got from Koni and from Alldogs Offroad was the BrOverland leaf springs, and so they do give us some bushings for the actual leaf spring, but we don't have a different shackle, so we got to keep all that. Then we can move on to the front and get some better light for you. Move on to the front, and so on the driver's side we have a 19 millimeter
bolt, and then the nut on it is 22 millimeters, but there's just not enough space in there for me to break that, and so I'm going to try to break the 19 millimeter side of this. Okay, I've got the leaf spring released. I've got it rolled over just because it's easier to kind of push out the back, not so much on the passenger side because you've got the exhaust over there, but on the driver's side you can just kind of cart it out the back. Okay, so here's the new BrOverland leaf spring, got all the wrapping off of it. That small set of bushings is for the Koni shock, so we're actually using these two bigger bushings, and they just go in either side of the big ring here, the big eyelet. Before I put it in there, I'm going to grease it really well, and then I'm also going to grease the shackle. Just grease it really well, just so that, you know, we don't hear any squeaking. The more the grease, the better. This bigger hole goes on the back with the shackle, and then this smaller hole is what's going to go towards the front, which just got that single bolt. So I'm going to get this all greased up and ready to go. Okay, I've got the leaf spring and the shock just lightly, almost like hand tightened in there. We really don't want to torque these down until we get all the weight on the ground, and so that bolt is not tightened or not torqued down, neither of those two, neither or is the strut too. And so the next part is to do these U-bolts. This is what came on the truck. Alldogs Offroad sent these for their leaf spring, a little bit bulkier, and so they won't actually fit in the original plate. And so I think these are maybe just under a ½ inch, and then these are a little bit over a ½ inch, like maybe 9/16. And so you'll need to use a drill bit or a step bit to make these just a little bit bigger, and then you can assemble the U-bolts. Okay, I've got the new U-bolts tightened down. There are no torque specs on this. I've looked in the service manual, it just says tighten them. And so I've done that, and I kind of did it in like a cross pattern while I did it. So the last thing to do is put on the tire and then lower this and then torque everything down. Something I didn't do was detach my sway bar during this process. It might have helped. I don't know. I've seen other people in videos do it. I didn't do it. I didn't have to. When I did the front, I did detach the sway bar, but in the rear I didn't. So for torque specs, starting with the strut shock, the top bolt needs to be torqued down to 33 foot-pounds, the bottom down to 148 foot-pounds. With the leaf spring, the rear bolts need to be 78 foot-pounds, and the front bolt needs to be 140. And all that is coming straight from the service manual. I will post a link and talk a little bit more about that throughout this video. But those are the torque specs. I'm going to go and lower that and get to it. So on my way to the alignment shop, and you can see the angle is a little off on the tire. I probably shouldn't have let out all that space on the upper control arm when I bumped out the eccentric with the eccentric bolts on the lower control arm. So alignment shop be able to fix that right up, and should have a great riding vehicle soon. On the initial alignment diagnostic, it was actually my toe that was off, and so it was causing the tires to point inward. After the alignment, the shop did great. I'm in full spec, full alignment, and ready to hit the open road. All right, final measurements in the pitch black of the Oregon Pacific Northwest. From the ground, we have almost 37 inches. And from the middle of the tire, we're looking at 22 inches. So I think it's close to a 2.5 rise all around. That's also at the rear. So I think that ½ inch spacer leveled out the truck. I know there's big debates online of like, do we want to rake, do we not? I like the level look. That's just the way I like it. So a good 2.5 inch growth all around, and that's including being weighed down with the winch, the front bumper,
but that's probably offset in the back by the Overland roof rack from Nismo in the back. So leveled out across the truck. Really happy with the height. So thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope that I prefaced this video correctly, that it was long, it was difficult, but it was successful. So appreciate you sticking around. Feel free to like, subscribe. I honestly don't even want to see the comments in this video. So if you have to comment, please be nice to me. Again, was successful. Highly recommend the products. Feel free to ask questions. I'll do the best I can to answer them. Thanks for watching.